welcome back to Horror Flicks with Nick. Today I'm reviewing Slapface, a new horror film that is being released onto Shudder later this week. Slapface tells the story of Lucas, a young boy who lives in a rundown home in the woods with his brother Tom. Feeling isolated after the death of his mother, Lucas seeks companionship and finds it in the form of an inhuman monster who is willing to kill anyone that comes in between it and Lucas. I just finished watching Slapface, and unfortunately, this movie's not the best. Starting with the positives, I did like the movie's creature. At its core, Slapface is about the relationship between the boy and the monster. With how present the monster is in the story, the monster needed to look good. And thankfully, it did. The creature's design was quite simple, but still effective. Sometimes these low-budget horror movies bite off more than they can chew with their monster, showing too much of it, and subsequently exposing the bad CGI or wonky practical effects. Slapface does a good job of obscuring the creature in shadows, only showing shots of the hands or shots of the back, keeping the entity veiled behind a cloak primarily, and only showing brief glimpses. As for my main issue with Slapface, this is a movie that lacks any distinctness. Slapface doesn't go far enough in one particular area to really stand out from the many similar horror stories. I mean, the cinematography was solid, it does look better than a lot of low-budget horror I've seen, but there isn't one shot that stands out in my mind after watching. Slapface isn't over-the-top gory or brutal or bloody, it doesn't have any spectacular special effects, it doesn't have great comedy, there aren't great scare sequences, I can't remember a time that I jumped or felt any tension, most of the characters are pretty unlikable and underwritten, and as for the story, Slapface follows a classic horror plot of a troubled kid who befriends a supernatural entity. No one believes him, he starts to get blamed for things the creature does, before things start to spiral out of control. I did appreciate that this added some new wrinkles, like the boy befriending a group of female bullies, but as a whole, it just follows too many tired horror tropes. Like the dog dying first, a supernatural entity standing in as a metaphor for trauma. It even features a scene where characters go to a library to read old newspaper scannings to find out about the creature. I mean, compare Slapface to a movie like Psycho Goreman, which came out just last year and essentially had the exact same premise where a troubled kid meets a deadly supernatural entity. Psycho Goreman worked way better as it knew what type of movie it was. Psycho Goreman had great comedy, great effects, and a consistent goofy tone. It felt fresh, and it had a clear voice. Slapface just does not have the same flair or uniqueness. It feels like 100 other movies, but never found its own footing. I know I just listed a lot of negatives, it sounds like I'm totally bashing this movie, but I'm not. I didn't hate Slapface. For the most part, it's fairly solid, it's serviceable in most areas, checks a lot of individual horror boxes. I just wish, as a whole, it went further in one singular area, pushed some boundary, gave me something I haven't seen before and seen done better. More comedy, more horror, more visual flair, maybe some memorable twist, more unique characters, one standout scene, just something I could sink my teeth into and remember about Slapface a week from now. Overall, I give Slapface 4.5 slaps out of 10 faces. Anyways, those are my thoughts on Slapface. Slapface is a new Shudder original that comes out later this week on February 2nd. Once you also get a chance to see Slapface, please in the comments below, let me know what you thought of it. As well, I'll try to leave it a link in the description, maybe somewhere up here, for a promo code if you don't already have Shudder, so you too can watch Slapface. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel, Horror Flicks with Nick. Twice a week I post horror reviews, commentaries, deep dives, and short 2-minute recommendations for horror movies you should watch on Netflix and other streaming services. Thank you for watching this week's review of Slapface. As for next week, I've been working on this one video for I think over 2 months now. It's a deep dive into one of my favorite topics of all time, slashers. I'm really happy with how that video turned out. I'm really excited for all of you to see it. So please tune in next week on Horror Flicks with Nick and come check out that video. Until then, thank you all for watching and go slap some faces. Bye.